some funds specifically in regards to. I'm using this as a perfect example. Sometimes when they hear about funds being allocated, whether it be grant money, whether it be SPLOST or whatever, they have a right to understand how those funds have been expended.
Sure.
And obviously, if in their minds that have not been spent the right way, obviously there needs to be someone to look at, to overview what has happened or what has not happened. And I expressed to this citizen, I said, well, auditors would have the opportunity to look and to make sure and determine if that entity has spent those monies appropriately. And that I know sometimes there's a big pressure sometimes from citizens because they see monies coming in, they see things happening, just like SPLOST. That's another example. Why you can't use SPLOST on this? Well, right. Yeah, we understand that there's a need there, but that may not be what that designation of those funds have been set for. So it's hard to help people understand all that, especially when there's greater needs than there are revenue dollars, right, as far as that, and then they have restrictions on those dollars in regards to that. I think when SPLOST came on the scene some years ago now, almost 20-something years ago, voted in by the legislators, new revenue opportunity for all of us local governments, but came with restrictions of how we can use those things. You can't use them for general operations as far as operating the government, but that does leave some mindset with the citizen to believe that, well, y'all got all this money coming, I can't see why y'all can't go over here and do this. So it's helpful that y'all come in and help clarify what those things are and help us stay on task to what we're purposed to do, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, trying to be transparent and accountable to the people that we serve as far as that. I see John is looking at me saying, hey, we got to take a break. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with maybe phase 2, a part of that, and kind of talk about how when y'all get into office and start reviewing some of those invoices and maybe get down in the weeds on that. We'll be right back after these messages.
WDTV 13. Programming is sponsored by
Roscoe Allen Jr. and Gubus Modular Buildings in Ocilla, Georgia. We proudly support local programming on WDTV 13. American Truck Parts Incorporated, a proud sponsor of WDTV 13 programming. Vickers Audio and Glass Tinting, supporting our local programming on WDTV 13. Storage Solutions, etc., locally owned and operated and located at 1010 Bowens Mill Road, Southeast in Douglas. Harper & Company Builders, serving Douglas and Coffee County for 29 years. And a proud sponsor of community programming. Dewey Hayes Jr., attorney at law, selected to the top 100 trial lawyers in the state of Georgia.
Aiden's Minute Market. When you're out, we're in.
Fletcher Oil Company, since 1966, has been supporting local activities and a proud sponsor of community programming on WDTV 13. Fletcher Oil Company is a member of the Women's Business Enterprise National Council.
McCrary Daniels Insurance Agency.
Study the unique ecology of our region and prepare yourself for an exciting career. South Georgia State College now offers a Bachelor of Science degree in Biological Sciences. Select the Nature and Ecology track to prepare yourself for a fulfilling career in a variety of fields. Or take the Pre-Professional track to lay the groundwork for further studies in medicine, pharmacology, and other health fields. Learn more online at sgsc.edu. South Georgia State College. You matter here.
You're not who you used to be. And neither are we. With a caring staff, experienced doctors, and the most advanced technology, Coffee Regional Medical Center in Douglas, Georgia is better than ever before.
We're back with Douglas on My Mind show, and once again I have with us Hurst & Hurst Company, CPA firm, LLC, and they are here talking about their focus on auditing and nonprofit in regards to that, and they've been doing ours for quite a while. Do an excellent job with us. Appreciate their objectivity in regards to reviewing our financials to make sure that we stay on focus, to make sure that we're accountable and transparent with our citizens that we serve. And we were talking before the break about, the performing audit and different steps. I think you said you got 3 components of that. The engagement, how you're going to plan to do it,
Right.
and then the actual work in regards to that. That's kind of where I would like for us to stay just for a few minutes in regards to, what takes place in regards to getting that work effort done, because citizens may believe that y'all go through every single invoice or whatever, and that may not be the case in all circumstances. So kind of talk about how y'all go about, that work effort in regards to the audit.
Okay, yeah, I don't think y'all could afford to pay us to
No,
go through every single invoice.
We would love to, but that would be too costly.
Part of that goes back to the planning phase, where we've decided where certain areas we want to look at in more detail. We don't look at every single transaction. We try to go in and do statistical sampling across the board on everything.
Right.
But honestly, there's a $3 transaction is probably not going to be looked at by us when we come in and do our audit. It may be randomly selected, but it's not something we would have targeted.
Okay.
Part of that planning phase is what we call a materiality threshold. And that's where we have said overall on the financial statements, we think everything above this dollar amount is a critical number. And we will look at every single transaction above that materiality number. If it's material, it could have a material effect on negatively impacting the financials. If it's wrong, we look at it. So that's never going to be a $3 transaction. Once we've got that test pulled, and we pull those numbers from your accounting records, and we go in and say, okay, we want to see every transaction over X dollars. Then we have someone start pulling invoices for us. Then we take those invoices. We're looking for several things on those invoices that we're testing. Number one, we want to make sure they were properly approved. Was the product received? Did somebody sign off on that? Did somebody authorize payment of it? Did payment go to the person that it was supposed to go to? And then was it recorded properly? If it was an expense for road work, did it get recorded on the city's financial statements as road work and not as office supplies? So we're checking to make sure all those things have been properly reported that way. Now that can turn into a lot of invoices to look at, but we're still trying to make sure that overall all those numbers are in the right places.
And to that end, I recall when we went through an RFP process with our financial software, one of our most critical, shall we say, criteria of trying to evaluate the vendor that we would choose. And I know some of y'all viewers can remember the utility billing and all the software conversion that we went through. Very, very challenging proposition. But one of the most critical things is trying to make sure that we are able to produce the information for our auditors, because that can be cumbersome, and that slows down an auditor when they're trying to come in here and do the field work, and when they can't get the generated information that they want. They should be able to put their hands on the information that we need to give them in regards to that sampling or that ability to review. So I'm glad that we do have the system in now that actually works a lot more seamlessly. So that hopefully makes the audit flow a lot quicker in that regard.
Yeah, it is. There's not a happier auditor in the state with the software than we are with what the city's got.
We appreciate that.
I know there were some ripples getting it in place, but as far as meeting the promises that the software company promised, this software has been fantastic for us.
Yeah, we've been very pleased.
We can dig faster into what and get the data back out much faster than having to do it by hand. Because before a lot of times we were just having to dig and pull to get it back out. And now we can go in and it's a whole system-wide system. Whereas before, we may have we were in a hodgepodge of systems
Yeah,
before,
two
and we would have to go to 2 or 3 places trying to find data, where now everything's in one central location. So that does help us a lot.
Yeah, most definitely, so.
The other pieces of field work that we have to worry about is our compliance.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at the invoices, and then the other big piece is the compliance piece. You mentioned SPLOST earlier. There's certain restrictions on what SPLOST money can be spent for. That it's approved by the voters, and it says you can spend this money on 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
This list of projects.
Right.
Part of our audit is to go in and make sure that SPLOST money has been spent only on those projects and not pulled out and spent on other things.
Right.
Same thing with other grant monies we have coming in from the federal government and other places. We're making sure that money's been spent on what they say.
Right.
Some cities and counties have gotten in a lot of trouble by taking that money and spending it in their general fund for other projects. They're just borrowing it, of course,
Well,
but that's forbidden for them to use that money on anything else whatsoever. So.
And obviously that, where there's a lot of need, opportunity presents itself, and then gets her in a whole lot of trouble. So we've been very fortunate. We try to be good stewards of the resources that the good citizens have provided for us, and I'm glad that, each year we hopefully aspire to have a good, clean audit. And, let's talk a little bit about that term, because I think a lot of people hear you say that, and I think they put it in the newspaper when they write it all up. What does that mean, a clean audit, in regards to that? So that might be helpful to viewers to kind of know a little bit more in depth about that. So.
Okay. A clean audit means that in overall, based on those materiality thresholds and things that we looked at in our planning phase, that the financial statements are fairly presented. Part of our materiality planning is we may say, okay, and a transaction may be off $25. That doesn't really affect the overall financial statements for the city. Somebody may have put an order of pencils in janitorial supplies instead of office supplies. That stuff may have, those kind of things could happen.
Right.
But in the big picture, it doesn't negatively affect the financial statements. And that's why on our materiality, we're looking at picking big dollar items that could have a big impact on us. So a clean audit opinion means that we didn't find any fraud. Everything was basically in the right hole. All the dollars have been accounted for. We didn't find any major discrepancies that would kick us out of having what's called a clean opinion. That doesn't mean we didn't come up with some suggestions, or we didn't say, hey, we think you might want to change how you're reporting this, but it means in the overall picture is very good.
Okay, good. So obviously that's some of the sense of hopefully what our viewers can see, that we, once again, each year we get a clean audit. We didn't talk about the time frame that normally y'all look at. Each local government nonprofit has a different fiscal year, and we're July to June, and I think the county's January, December.
Right.
I don't know what the EDA is. I don't know if there's a September to.
Yeah, they're December.
December, okay. So all of them having different time frames in regards to their fiscal years. How do y'all look to engage or put the planning together? What some of the time envelopes that y'all look at in regards to that?
Well, and most people talk about closing out the year end. It's an instantaneous process almost. Give them a couple of weeks, and everybody's got their bank recs done.
Right.
For our small business clients, for our government clients, it's a much bigger process trying to close out year end. So for us, it usually takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks for cities and counties of this size to get their year end done. Because before we get in, of course, everybody in all these departments are trying to make sure their bank accounts are reconciled, everything's ticking tied together, and before we get there, because they don't want us coming in and saying, "Oh, wait a minute, you didn't do this, and we need to make a change."
Right.
So they're getting their ducks all in a row before we get there. The audits are due 6 months after year end to the state. Every audit gets filed to the State Department of Audits. After 6 months, they'll cut off funding. So the state will come in and say, you didn't send us the audit in time, so you can't get any more grant funds that come through the state. Same thing happens at the federal level. You get on a blacklist until you get current. So there's a lot of pressure to get that report out and get it to the state before that 6-month period runs. So for the city, that report has to be ready by December to send to the state.
So a lot of things to look at